I think our children are the ones that need to be telling their stories. As parents, as teachers, we can walk beside our kids, but we can't tell their stories. We don't live their lives. So one of my goals for our Facebook Live show is to make sure that I bring on more people that can speak the truth that they see, that they live every day. So welcome to our show today. If we haven't met before, I'm Charmaine Thaner. I'm a parent, a retired teacher. I was going to say I taught with our special guest, with her father, and we'll talk about that maybe a little bit later. But I am also an advocate for families that have kids with disabilities, and I help them learn how to be even more effective advocates so their kids get the education that they deserve. And I am thrilled that we have Abby Woods with us today. As I mentioned, I used to teach with her father when I was a teacher in Colorado. And I told Abby, I said, I remember, not that she remembers, but I remember decorating our elementary library for her mother's baby shower when she was expecting Abby. So I feel like I've had this close connection to Abby for years. But I am excited because Abby is here to talk to us about having anxiety and depression and eliminating that stigma that often comes when people talk about mental illness. So welcome, Abby. And I would love for you to give your own introduction of yourself.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I love every single opportunity that I can get to speak because it just means so much to so many people. So I'm 15 years old. I'm going to be a sophomore this year, and I've worked with a lot of community service groups. I'm the president of one in Woodland Park right now, called the Teen Advisory Board with the Teen Center. I'm in marching band. I'm a teenager, but I also live with chronic anxiety and depression, and I have for as long as I can remember. I'm on medication for both of them, and I've been hospitalized. I go to therapy. I'm very much have experienced a lot of it. I've also had poems published in books. Well, one is published in a book. Another one is actually in the process of being published. I do a lot of speaking events, and I read poetry a lot. And I mostly just write about my experience a lot because I've found a home in writing like I haven't anywhere else. But for me, it's just so important to change the way that people see mental health, especially in teenagers, where there's this misconception that teenagers are faking it for attention, or it's a phase. But everything in life is phases, and none of them are less important than any other ones. And it doesn't invalidate what someone's feeling. And I think that's something that needs to be greatly changed about how we view mental health, especially with kids and teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure. And that's the thing is, I think my guess is it would make it even more frustrating for a teenager to have those feelings and then not be able to have them validated or honored by other people, and like you were saying, oh, they're just trying to get attention, and not really understanding that, no, this is something that's really impactful. So yeah. When, how young were you when you were noticing, the anxious feelings or the depression?
I really didn't put words to what I was feeling until like a year ago, year and a half ago. Like, it hasn't been that long, but like going back and looking at my past, I can identify both anxiety and depression throughout my life for as long as I can remember, which is about third grade. So it's been there for a while. I remember in third grade, I did my first state testing, and I was running a fever during the state testing because I was so stressed. And but I refused to like give up on it. I kept doing it, and that night I got really horribly sick. And that was one of the first things I could see in third grade, the summer of third grade. I became depressed. I would like walk around the house and I'd be like really randomly crying, and my parents would be like, "What's wrong? Like, what are you?" And I didn't know. It was just like this feeling that now I can see was my mental health issues. So over time, it's been quite a journey, but not until like last year, I knew very vaguely what depression and anxiety were, which is kind of a part of the problem because I think kids need more education on what they are, because it was just something I kind of heard about, a lot of it through like jokes and misunderstanding. And whenever I did understand these words and discover them, I felt like I couldn't say that's what I had, because so many people, when they're like, I'm depressed, I have anxiety, people most often jump to, you're doing that for attention, you're faking it, you don't have a diagnosis, blah, blah, blah. When it's like, no one wants to have this. If someone is doing that for attention, then that's their issue, but we should not treat every single person as if they are, because that's so much more harmful than helpful. So I was definitely depressed and I was definitely anxious, but I wouldn't say I have depression, because I was like, no, I have it really easy. Like, I have a very good life, and I'm really grateful for everything I have in my life. And so I thought, because of that, I can't be depressed. I can't have depression, which makes it feel like I was broken. Like, when I finally could claim that as what was wrong, when I could finally like point at this pain and this emptiness inside of me and say, this is depression, it felt like something that could be treated. It felt like something that I wasn't alone in. But before I was able to actually feel okay enough to say that, it was like, I'm just broken and I don't know why. And that's how it was all the time. I first admitted to myself that I had anxiety probably like 7th, 8th grade. But I didn't really let myself say or think that I have depression until like a year and a half ago. My parents have only known like officially for about a year when I told them. But I just think that these words and these things that we assign to them can actually be really powerful. Just because it's something, at least in my experience now, I can look at and I can be like, I'm going to change this. I'm going to get treatment for this mental illness. And it's not just something that's weird and that feels wrong and feels like no one else has it. Because when you figure out this is what you have, you can find other people with it who empathize with you and who actually understand what you're going through. And it's a completely different when you find that label.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because I know that, like you said, when you could start claiming that, that's when it felt, right for you, as far as, and I think there's so much shame that comes with it. And that's what I'm hoping that with younger people speaking out and talking about it, that people will realize it's not something to be shameful of. I have depression. I've been taking medication for years, and I don't share that very much. And I think I don't share it very much because I do wonder if people are going to judge me.
Yeah, I think there's always that fear and always that everyone is running from judgment, it seems like. I remember I was hospitalized back in December. It was right before our break. So I was hospitalized and I didn't see any of my classmates besides my friends until the start of next semester. And going back, I was like, what am I going to say? Because people are going to notice that I was gone. It's a small school,
Right.
And I was like, do I just say I was sick? Do I just say I was in a hospital? Do I actually say, like, what happened? And I didn't really know, but the first day back, I was actually in geometry. And my teacher decided to just sit in a circle and, like, talk about things just randomly. Like, we weren't going to learn geometry that first day back. And so we went around and we were answering, like, prompts on cards. And one of them was, what was the hardest decision you've ever made? Or the hardest thing you've done? And I was honest, like, when it came around to me, and I talked about the choice to go to my parents that night that I went into the mental hospital, because I actually went to them and I said, I don't feel safe. I'm not in control of myself and I need to go somewhere where I am. And just finding the courage to do that and finding the courage to go to this place that's so scary and so different was the hardest choice I had made. And I told my entire geometry class that, like, on the first day of second semester, and they were all just blown away. And that's where I was like, I figured this is a part of me. And I've found enough within myself to come forward about it and to talk about it and to help other people. So I'm going to do it. So yeah, it was like the craziest experience to just tell my entire geometry class that, and to start being like, no, I wasn't just sick. I was in a mental hospital. Like, it's very different from, like, sitting at home with a fever to, like, being in this place where I'm cut off from everything.
Right.
So I chose to not hide it. And a large part of me wanted to. It just seems easier. But looking back, it's like, it's so important. Because then other people who can't do that feel less alone, because they're like, there is someone talking about it. And that's why the conversation has to keep going. Because for those who can't talk about it, for those who can't come forward and do whatever they can to change things, because it's very, very hard, they see other people doing it, and that means the world. And I know that from before I could do this.
Right. And I think, my guess is that you probably opened up, it's not like Pandora's box or something, but you gave permission, I think, for other, friends and students in the high school to know that they aren't alone, that there is somebody that they can talk to, that there are things that can be done. So what would you say, because I know we have a lot of parents on today, what would you say as far as, tips for parents? And I think, to know, like, when is it really serious and when do we need to look at having some professional help? Because we do want to make sure that our kids are safe. And I think that's a fear that we have as parents, is like, are they going to do something that's going to be harmful? So I don't know, what could you share about as far as how to help parents know what to do?
Yeah. From the very beginning, I think it's really important for parents to talk to their kids about what anxiety and depression and OCD and other mental disorders are, and what it looks like and what it feels like. Because if we educate kids from when they're little, they can see the signs, and we build this place of trust where they feel like they can actually talk to their parents. I do understand that it's really hard when you can't just look into their life and see, because you want to protect them. I feel that with my friends all the time. But something important is it's a very hard balance, because you can't force it out of them, because then you build this fear and distrust around the subject and around the relationship. But you also can't just not say anything, because chances are they won't tell you. I know that, like, when I was dealing with it, I just wanted to fight it. I just wanted it to be over with, because I didn't want anyone else to have to deal with it. I didn't want to have our family pay for medication or pay for therapy. I didn't want to hurt the people in my life knowing that I was having these issues, because other people in my family have had them, and it's really scary. My parents, when I told them, sat me down, because I had trigger warning for mental health, or not mental health, self-harm, but I had cuts on my arm back then. Because I was in the midst of like a really bad place. And I hid them all the time, but every once in a while they'd see them and I'd be like, oh, they're just cat scratches. But like eventually, I think it was like the last day of 8th grade, or like the day after, they were like, I need you to sit down and I need you to tell me what's happening. And I'm very, very lucky to have really, really amazing parents who I can trust and who I know have my best interests at heart. So I told them everything, which was like that. How much do I say? What do I, and I was like, no, let's do this. Let's open this conversation, because I want to get better. I always want to get better. Like, it's not a fun thing to have. And for parents, once you get your kids to open up to you, you have to listen to them. I know that a lot of adults, when kids go to them for help, they'll say these things and they'll try and explain them away. They'll be like, oh, it's your hormones, oh, it's this. Regardless of why it's happening or when it's happening, the pain is still very real and the struggle is still very real. So parents and other adults in general need to start listening rather than speaking over kids when they finally find the courage to talk about it. And also, something really important as parents and adults and just everyone in general, even if you don't suspect your kid of having mental health issues, even if you think everyone in your life is okay, you never really know. And I think it's extremely important to not make mental health a joke. Like, don't ever joke about self-harm. Don't joke about depression or anxiety or saying that, like, they're stupid things, because little jokes, when people are in dark places, it can mean a lot to them. And it says a lot that you don't really think about. But you have to be really careful and think about, like, what are you actually saying when you say those things that are meant as not to hurt people, but when you don't know, and you never really know what people are going through. It can really hurt them, and it can cause distrust before you even start talking about it in actuality. So it's really important to not do that, or like make fun of other people who have things. Just in general, treat it with respect and with just respect. Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, I think it doesn't take away from the wonderful person. And I'm hearing a little bit of feedback, so let me turn down my thing here. But yeah, and I just think that honoring and that value, value. And the other thing that I try to remind myself, and I sometimes people have to help me remember, not to use words like crazy and stupid and, that are demeaning and, like you said, kind of make it a joke, because then to me that just kind of adds to that stigma. Mm-hmm. But we have lots of people on with us live, and I want to share their comments and let you be able to react some. So let me pull one up. So we have your dad on with us. And he's saying that Woodland Park School District has been extremely helpful and positive through this entire situation, from the superintendent to Abby's principal to my teammates.
That's very true. Like I said, I was out right at the end of first semester, and I was hospitalized up until like the day of the start of finals. And I was lucky enough to my dad talk to them, and I got out of all of my finals, which was so extremely helpful, because in the mental hospital where I'm trying to work through things and I'm trying to heal and get better, I was worried about that. And I was worried about these tests, and getting that like taken off my shoulders was so amazing. And the school district, I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm very lucky also to have the connection that my dad is, though, and to open up those conversations. And I know that for other kids who don't have those, I think some cases can be dismissed easier because they're not as well known, which there's always room for improvement. But yeah, it was really amazing of them for me. And all of my teachers that I've had have been absolutely incredible. I have panic attacks sometimes in class. I freak out over things, and they give me the space to calm down, to step out of the hallway. And it's been very nice. And that support means everything.
Oh, exactly. And so we have another comment from a viewer, and let's see if I can read it. So she said, Jonathan Woods, this is why speaking out about mental illness is so important. Everyone knows somebody with a mental illness, yet many don't know. So glad you're Abby's dad, and you're a legitimately great person. So yeah, I think it's just so important that that we start making more differences, and that we start having these conversations. So we also have a question, and they asked, what kind of reactions and questions did you get when you were told that to your classmates, or when you told that to your classmates?
That's a very good question. I was really scared. I was luckily in a class where, it was a higher level class, and so there are less people in there who would make fun of that, although they would, like, without thinking about it. But I think a lot of them were like shocked and in awe, because they wouldn't expect anyone to like speak out about that, or maybe they didn't have any idea that I had those issues. And so a lot of them were just like, we're just in awe. Some people thanked me. A lot of people actually did. They came up and they were like, thank you so much for saying that. My teacher afterwards she came up and she hugged me and she was like, "Thank you so much for saying that. You could have saved a life today." And that just means the world to me. And luckily, those classmates, yeah, I was really lucky and they were all very sweet about it. I haven't gotten any specific, like, towards me, people who will, like, target me for that. I think I think they're probably a little afraid of me because I know how to use words and I can win in a fight talking. But there are offhand things that people say and they don't think about it. And that needs to change. But personally, no one in that class said anything negative. And if anything, like, I seemed closer to those people afterwards, even though I didn't really know them and I still don't, like, very personally. But they were understanding and they were so nice to me, and they didn't treat me any differently, which is what I'm always afraid of.
Huh. Well, and Olivia says that she's so blessed to work with you, that she and all the teens at the Teen Center have helped me realize the importance of sharing my own struggles with anxiety and depression. Together, we can help break the stigma. Love you so much.
She's amazing. All my friends on here are amazing. Thank you guys for coming on. On friends, I am very, very, very fortunate in who I have found, who they support me, and I don't even know how to explain how much that means. I've had friends hold me through having flashbacks, through panic attacks and breakdowns and dissociation episodes, where I hate who I am in that moment and I hate how I'm freaking out. But they figure it out, and they figure out a way to help me through that. Or they'll hold my hands, or they'll rub my back. And it's honestly just the most amazing thing, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm being a burden on people. I'm such a hypocrite because I would never think that of anyone else. But for me, I'd be like, I'm just in the way. But my friends absolutely 100% make me feel like I'm safe with them. And I know that when I'm panicking, when something's going wrong, I can go to them and they will help me find a way to fix it, to get out of the situation, to calm down, to bring me back in the moment. And it's amazing. And they stick with me through my depressive episodes when I push people away, and through my anxiety over doing small things. I couldn't ask for better friends in my life.
I bet. And I think about, and I'll show how old I am. The Barbara Streisand song, "People who need people are the luckiest people in the world." And I think those relationships are what truly is a basic human need that we all have. So when we get that acceptance from our friends and we get that unconditional love from family and friends, that can just mean the world to each person, I think.
Yeah. And like I said, I really couldn't ask for better people. And I think that for people who have friends who are abusive, because friends can be abusive, and who don't treat them right, there are better people out there. And you have every reason to leave. You are allowed to leave friendships, any relationships, because finding the people that I have in my life right now and the people who I really trust has been worth the pain of losing anyone else. So I'm just really lucky to have found who I have. But just know, if you haven't, they're out there, and you can find them.
And brothers can be great too, right?
Yes. My brother's pretty awesome.
So I wanted to let people know that it would be great for you to share this video. You can share it right now, just hit the share button and you can share it onto your own Facebook page or in groups that you're in. Because the whole thing is we want Abby's story. We want other stories like Abby's to get out there. Because the more people that are connected and that the more people understand mental illness and stand up and say we're not going to be shameful of this anymore. We're not going to accept the stigma that our culture has put on us. That's going to make a huge difference in all of our lives. And so we have another comment here. It says, Abby, thank you for doing this. Destigmatization is so important, and this is a great way to do so, in my opinion. You have probably saved my life in the past, and you deserve all the love in the world. What would you say to people who think that depression and anxiety makes someone broken?
I love her so much. She's such a good friend. I would say that they are illnesses and that broken implies something that cannot be fixed. It implies something of their fault or something that is irreversible. Whereas it's a sickness. It's a sickness like if you get the flu, if you get cancer, if you break a leg, it's something that's going wrong with your body. Just because it's in your mind doesn't make it any less true or any less important than anything else. And I think a lot of people see the representation of mental health in people, and it's okay. Sorry, I have my cat and she's screaming. Do you want to come be in the live stream?
We can have a cat video.
Hi. It's
What's her name?
mental illness isn't anyone's fault. This is Cole. She's actually one of my emotional support cats.
I bet.
Are you a support cat? Are you certified? Yes, you are. Yeah, so it can be fixed. I mean, it's not fixed like easily, but it can be treated and it can be better, even if it's not ever really gone. And broken also implies you're less of a person, but you really aren't. Your identity is never your illness, is never your struggles. It's so much more than that. It is just a part of something that you have experienced.
And Jennifer's with us, and she says, I have a child who is 13 going through depression and anxiety. The hardest part has been her to realize she isn't less than because she's wired different.
Yeah, I think it's really easy for anyone, not even just kids, who is struggling with mental illness to feel like it's their fault for some reason. Like they're being a bother or like they're making it up. Because I think that's what is being impressed on everyone. But it's just not true. It's just finding the strength for when you do realize that it's not your fault and that you're not broken and that you're not less than for having these things is so important. But I feel that. I feel that, like, when I want to do something fun with my friends or I just want to do something normal or, like, we're having a thing and now I'm having a breakdown because of a certain word or a certain noise, it's not fun. And I feel like I'm a drag. I feel like like I should just go home and just sit in home, and I feel like that all the time. But it's not true, because people value you, because people love you no matter what goes wrong, no matter if you can't do certain things, no matter if some things bother you or sometimes you have to stay at home. The people in your life who really love you, that doesn't matter to them at all. So you're not less than at all.
And I know you mentioned that you take medication, that you you know ha, you know go to a counselor. So what kinds of, do you have like daily kinds of routines or affirmations that you say, or like what are some of the techniques that you've learned?
Um, I should probably do them more routinely than I do, but I definitely have things I do when I start having anxiety, when I start freaking out. Um, and it's really hard to do sometimes, and to get yourself into the habit of doing these things, it's really hard, because when you're having a breakdown, you can't think logically.
Right.
When you're having panic attacks, it's hard to get in control, and it's hard to do anything that can help you get there. But one of the most common ones that is definitely really helpful is deep breathing. Something else that is really important for me is a technique called grounding, where you go around and you can like feel things on the wall, or I'll go often be like, I look around the room and I have to find every color of the rainbow in something, and then I have to do it again without repeating like certain things, and it just takes you out of whatever you're freaking out about to focus on something small, but something you have to focus on. Um, Listening to music is really great. I do that. Um, Showers. I honestly, like, whenever I heard this, I didn't believe it. I was like, whatever. But when I'm in really bad depressive episodes, I don't want to shower. I don't want to do anything. But like taking a warm shower brings you back into your body and makes you realize that like it's taking your brain out of the fight or flight mode that is in there, which is panic attacks and anxiety a lot of the time. And it makes you feel that you're safe, that you're in your body. I'll also, other grounding things is like, what are 4 things you see, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 you taste, like just counting certain things and certain feelings and things you can see or taste or smell. Really bringing you back into your senses is really, really important. I'll distract myself. I'll go and watch a YouTube video if I'm freaking out that has nothing to do with it, and then I'm so immersed in this or like a TV show that you're not thinking about that anymore, which you can't do forever. You have to confront things, but when you're in a panicked position where you can't think logically and you're in danger, it's really important to get out of that so that you can think about that situation in a safer space, and more logically with support. So that's a lot of the things I'll do. I'll text my friends, I'll call them. Sometimes that's just helpful. There's so many things. Yeah.
And yeah, and I think, and I think what helps parents and teachers too, and other, people, is that different things are going to help different people. And so I think but I love the ideas that you've talked about, because I think there's probably, a universe out there of things that can help. But I've heard other people talk about those kinds of grounding exercises, or, when a parent or a teacher talks to a student and says, let's take a break. Tell me what you see on your desk,
Yeah.
what, and just ask those kinds of questions. Because, yeah, I mean, when you are in the middle of that panic attack or whatever, you don't have that logic brain.
Exactly.
You know, and Jennifer says, Abby, where did you find that helped you the most? Was it being open, friends, counseling, therapy, or all of them?
I'd have to say all of them. It's really hard to pinpoint things. Therapy is really important because you're with a professional who can help you find those techniques that help you and who you can tell everything to with confidentiality, without judgment, which is just such an amazing feeling. Friends and family are so important because of the love that you receive is so important. I mean, yeah, and then being open too. But I think for everyone, it's in different stages, and especially when I'm in really, really bad places where I'm in a bad depressive episode, I can't see any of those things. I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to talk about it. I just want it to be over. And that's where I think my friends really help, where I'm like at school and I've been wearing the same thing for 3 days and like I can't focus, I can't do anything. Just them being there and talking to me and hugging me, it like starts to remind you that whatever you're dealing with is most likely one part of your life. And there are other parts that are okay. And you need to indulge in those, even if it seems like that one part is everything, if that one thing is all that there is, or just the overwhelming emptiness. Yeah, every single one of those is important, but I'll always say my friends are the best friends I could ever ask for, and having them probably helps me the most when I can't bring myself to do therapy or I can't speak about it. And overall, probably my friends, because, when I'm freaking out at night, I can't go somewhere and talk about it or feel better, and I can't immediately go to my therapist. All of them are important, but my friends are just, it's really important to find people that you trust and people who treat you well.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And your dad says mindfulness. Yes, yes, yes. And so I wanted to also share, I had showed this to Abby before we came on. So I had recently bought this, I guess it's kind of like a kit. It's called Mindful Kids. And it's on the box, it says it's for ages 4 to 104. And what I like about it is there's just these nice cards inside that give you a variety of things. And, it is true. I mean, these are things that I could use. I bought this for kids, but I think, boy, I could easily take one of these cards every day and use it. So what they have is they have a card, and this one is called Mindful Breaths. And on the back, it gives, just the steps of that deep breathing. And I know for my son, Dylan, like this makes a huge difference. And I've made like a visual card for him to remind him of strategies to use. And for him, and maybe for some other parents that are watching, he wouldn't be able to pick up this card and read it. But I'm thinking, is there a way that maybe I could, record these or send him, an audio text message that reminds him of this? So I think as parents and teachers, the more we can look about incorporating this, I think it's really going to make a difference. And Abby, if you want to talk, I know you were saying that your dad is starting to do more things with his fifth graders. And so do you want to talk a little bit about what your dad does as a teacher?
Yeah, I'll do what I can. My dad is working really hard to make a good mindfulness program to really teach through, because he works really hard to do it in his classroom every day, but it's hard to fit that within everything else. And so I think it's really important for schools to have like a specific program with specific people, so that there's more attention on that. And that's what he's trying to build in Woodland Park. But he has to start small, like talking about meditation in his classroom and he does these things called Karma Tube, where you go on and they watch some video about somewhere else in the world or some other situation, and they reflect on it. And it's kind of just being mindful of what's happening in the world or what's happening right here, and kind of taking it outside of yourself to just see things, which can kind of calm stress down. And yeah, that's basically it. He's done a lot of really amazing work, and I'm really proud of him always.
Well, and I think that is so cool, because I was telling Abby when I was, both her dad and I were second grade teachers, and I used to do class meetings with my kids, and I really liked that because I loved that whole sense of building a community in my class. And every once in a while we would do, like a meditation break or something, but not often enough. And I think that, when we look at, the emphasis on test scores and the emphasis on grades and grade point averages for high school students, and how many AP classes are you taking, and all of that stress. And when kids are feeling that pressure and that stress, how much of that academic, knowledge is really sinking in.
Yeah.
And I think more teachers now are recognizing, and sometimes you see it, they're called brain breaks, and you have everybody in your class, maybe it's a movement break, or like you said, listening to music or something. But I think that's equally, if not more important than what we're teaching our kids through academic skills, because that's, if you look at life skills, I mean, that's a life skill, is, getting in touch and being able to be grounded and going through life and being able to have supportive people with us. So all of that is, to me, like, that's where the emphasis needs to be. And those are the relationships that we need to be developing with our own children and as teachers with our students.
Definitely. And the earlier they can start it, I know that, like, if you go to teenagers now and you're like, here, let's do these things, they're like, no, I don't want to. Because it's just, I don't know, it's just how things are sometimes. But if you, hi Autumn, that's my daughter, not my audio. Oh man, what was I saying?
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I saw it before anyway. Oh, she's great. But the earlier on, it's something that gets ingrained in you, and something that is a immediate, or at least sooner reaction to things, rather than unsafe things, taking risks, and just generally freaking out with no way to get out of it. Because then you already have those tools, because it's really hard to learn them when you're already in a bad place, because you barely have the energy to get up and to walk around. And the idea of trying to, like, do these specific things, it's honestly too much, from what I've experienced. But if we teach these kids that this is what you do when something happens, this is what you can do to calm down, this is how you get out of this situation, then it's there. And then they have that forever, especially if you keep encouraging it. Whereas, like, a lot of people talk about high school as like, you're never going to use any of that, because if you go into like a specific field, you're not going to use anything in the other fields. But that's something that, like, no matter what you do, you're going to have conflict, you're going to have hardship, And knowing what to do when you get there is really important.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So I also wanted to make sure that I told people that Abby has a poem that she's going to be reading with us. And if you just type in the comment box poem, um, hopefully my little bot will send you the link and you'll get a copy of it. So I want to make sure that we have time to do that. But before you read your poem, Abby, are there any other? I think you've really, I mean, it's like how there's been like a ton of nuggets that you shared with us today. And I want to go back and um, kind of capture those and almost, so I can share those with people because this is the wisdom that we need to be hearing, and you are the person that needs to be sharing this because this is your story. And I am just very honored that you have the composure and the ability to be able to be so articulate with your feelings. And I know that you have said that through your writing is something that's been very helpful. So would you like to share your poem with us?
Yes. I'm going to have to read it off my phone. I have it somewhat memorized because I've performed it a lot, but I want to be able to hit everything that I want to say. Um, this poem I performed, I'm trying to think how many times I've done it. I can't remember because I think I've done it at some open mics or slams. I did with the book that it's in, the book release for that. And I read this at the showing of Angst. Um, but it's really important to me, obviously. And I think a lot of people relate to it. So it's called A Friend Named Anxiety. I have a friend I can find in all of my memories. She is there in every moment I can remember. In the worst times, the best times, and everything in between, she is always, always with me. I try to escape, but she is so insistent no matter how good it gets. She remains on the sidelines no matter how bad it gets. She remains wrapped around me. I feel her hands pushing down on my shoulders, her eyes piercing into my mind, her whispers into my ears. I can't cry because she will only get worse. She remains in the strains of my life, tells me the thousands of things that could go wrong, reminds me of the millions that already have, reassures me that I should always be a friend. I have a friend named Anxiety. Sometimes I am her. She is me. We are blazing and broken, and she is constantly reminding me that she will never leave me. For my better or my worse, she's here. And maybe she isn't really a friend. No, anxiety is a mental illness I convince myself is okay. Okay, even though none of the days with her are okay. Anxiety makes everything so vastly complicated. She is hyperventilating over posting a comment on Instagram, crying over one mean thing, believing that she is my only friend. Because real friends could never like a girl like me, right? Anxiety, right? She is hands shaking over everything. Crossing the street, ordering a drink, knocking on any front door. Anxiety is a constant complicated fear. She has a stomach ache I feel all the time, having the best day only to return home to her arms wrapped around me, her hands on my stomach, to her whispers and her lies. She is everything but pretty. She is everything but fun. She tells me that I am not pretty, that I am not fun. She tells me that she is my only friend. Well, anxiety, you are not a friend. My real friends wrap warm fingers around shivering hands, hold me through the hurricane. As I fade, falling into my fears, the real friends stand with me through the silence, defend me from the depression, and never make me feel alone. You, anxiety, are not my friend.
Oh, that gives me chills. I've heard you do this before, and I just thank you, because this is a powerful message, and one that I'm just so honored that I could give you a vehicle today to be able to share this with others, because you are making such a difference in your life and your friends' lives and so many others. And I appreciate you, Abby Woods.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity and every opportunity that I can get, because I love speaking out and helping people who can't, who are who I was and still am sometimes. I think it's really important, and I couldn't do it without people like you and people with platforms. And thank you so much. It's really an honor.
Oh, you're welcome. And so there's one thing that we do on like Facebook shows that we call fireworks. So if everybody can go to their little like or hearts button and send Abby lots of likes and hearts. Now we call it a fireworks show, and we can see them appear on air. So go and give Abby some likes and some love. And thank you, each of you, for being here. If you have a friend that wasn't able to be with us live, please encourage them to watch the replay. The replay will stay up on my Facebook page. And we are live every Thursday at noon Mountain Time. So I appreciate you being a part of our community, and I hope that you'll have a wonderful week. And I shall see you again next Thursday at noon Mountain Time. I'm Charmaine Thaner. Have a wonderful week and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.